Fox 61, Connecticut's news station, starts with a weather impact alert.
And good evening, and thanks for joining us for the Fox 61 News at 6. I'm Brent Harden.
And I'm Bridget Piorlo. We begin tonight with a weather impact alert for some snow and ice that could impact your morning drive.
Yeah, Chief Meteorologist Rachel Frank is here with what to expect. Rach?
Yeah, certainly not a big storm, but the timing is not good. Arriving during the morning drive, I think a lot of schools will choose to close tomorrow. This will all get underway between around 5 and 8 a.m., beginning as snow, but as the morning progresses and we head into the afternoon, we go from a burst of snow over to an icy mix of sleet, freezing rain, and even rain for the shoreline. By around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the storm is pretty much over with, but I extended this alert until around 4 because I think even after precipitation comes to an end, there will still be some lingering slippery spots as road crews continue to put treatment down. So we're looking at some snow and ice removal, generally about 1 to 3 inches of snow. Most of that will occur between 8 to around 11 a.m. and then after that we'll put a little bit of slop or a mix on top of it. So putting a thin crust on top of any snow that falls. Radar's quiet here close to home. And if we look at the storm approaching, you might think, oh, it doesn't really look like much. It isn't. Again, it's just all about poor timing. Temperatures right now are in the 20s across the state. As we head through the overnight hours, we're quiet. Overnight lows will dip back into the teens. We'll see that snow developing in the morning, transitioning to that mix for the midday into the afternoon. And then it comes to an end by mid-afternoon and will dry things out. But again, lingering slippery spots possible into the evening commute. We're not expecting enough ice to cause outages. I did want to tell you that, but it doesn't take much to make things slick. We'll take a look at storm number 2, maybe 3 in the pipeline coming up in just a bit.
All right, Rachel, thank you. Well, protests erupted across every state in our country today, all against President Trump and his early actions in office. Take a look at the scene here in Hartford today. Chanting demonstrators lined Capitol Avenue with signs and flags. This movement was organized online through the hashtags Build the Resistance and 5051, which stands for 50 protests, 50 states, 1 day. Many are pushing back against President Trump's immigration crackdown, the rollback of transgender rights, and recent comments about the U.S. taking over the Gaza Strip, among other things.
Immobilizing. It feels scary. It feels so threatening. But I don't think that's a reason to stop fighting, and I don't think that's a reason to stop coming together and uniting. And I think we need to identify who our neighbors are, who they're trying to divide, and identify the real enemy instead of antagonizing each other.
And while it was busy outside the Capitol, there was a lot going on inside the Capitol as well.
Yeah, today Governor Ned Lamont laid out his vision for the Connecticut budget.
Lawmakers need to pass a spending bill this legislative session, and with so many groups asking for more money, a lot of people came away from today's address with concerns. Fox
61's Emma Wolfhorst explains from the state capitol.
The governor introduced his more than $55 billion 2-year budget proposal, highlighting more funding for education, housing, and health care, but also opening up this session to a big debate over the fiscal guardrails.
Our proposed budget is our best effort to stay true to our Connecticut values.
The 2-year plan spends nearly $27 billion next fiscal year, with just over $28 billion the second, all as pandemic-era federal dollars are now gone. Hardest hit by that new gap, education. Lamont's proposal includes a $54 million increase in state aid for special ed, with a $300 million investment toward future universal pre-K. Higher ed is getting more dollars from state grants, but college and university students say with fewer federal funds, it'll still feel like a budget cut.
UConn students are going to be important, and they need to be considered. Really, every resource that serves students on campus feels a pinch when we enroll more and don't get more funding.
Other groups let down nonprofits, which say without federal funding or any meaningful increase in already slowed state money, they're looking at a $19 million cut. Hospitals aren't happy either. The Connecticut Hospital Association calls this budget devastating. Lamont did propose lowering prescription drug costs by limiting price increases for generic drugs to the annual rate of inflation and using money to shop outside the domestic market.
And our budget includes funding to import pharmaceuticals from Canada at less cost, unless tariffs kill that option.
That call out of the current administration was not the only time Lamont shared criticism of D.C. in his budget address.
Every day we get another curveball from Washington.
Beyond issues over Capitol Hill cash flow, there's disagreement on a state level over those fiscal guardrails.
Playing fiscal gimmicks, creating slush funds, no relief on energy, no relief on taxes.
Governor Lamont proposed very modest tax cuts, mostly tweaking thresholds for a small state tax credit toward your local property taxes. But with much still up in the air, some say the governor's proposal is a good starting point.
We don't know to the extent of the federal tsunami that we are facing, but what the governor has said as a snapshot in time is a reasonable beginning.
And this is obviously just the start of the budget process here. Now the legislature is tasked with creating their possible proposal and hopefully passing a budget by the end of session in June. At the state capitol, Emma Wolforst, Fox 61.
Emma, thank you. We have new details tonight on that intense overnight fire in New Britain that completely destroyed a home.
After 2 decades of living there, the family is asking what's next. Fox 61's Jamel Johnson spoke with the family, and they say it wasn't just their home that was lost.
Here on Austin Street in New Britain, a family's life has just gotten flipped upside down as they were forced out of their home by a house fire. Firefighters were able to control it, but unfortunately for them, everything inside is gone. In the early hours of Wednesday morning, the Sandoval family was sleeping in their home of 20 years when they were woken up by flames. Tatiana Sandoval says it all happened in the blink of an eye.
As it was happening, I kept saying, I'm like in a nightmare. Like I just want to wake up. I'm experiencing what I hear all the time. People say, I never thought it happened to me, never thought.
Fortunately for the Sandoval family, all of them were able to get out safely. However, an important piece of them was missing.
We managed to all get out, thank God, except for one of my 3 dogs. We couldn't find him. He did stay inside, so he didn't make it. I think that's one of the toughest things because, material stuff we can get again, but they become family, so that's tough.
Even as the flames ravaged through the house, Tatiana says the aftermath still came as a shock.
We were in our neighbor's house. She held us in there, thank God. And I didn't think it was going to be this bad. And we came out and there was nothing left.
The neighbor who helped them, Robin Packard, also has severe damage to her car and home.
I didn't realize that my car was melting, so I hopped into my car to get it out of the direct danger and park it on the side of the street, not realizing the fire had already damaged it.
In all her 18 years in the neighborhood, she's never seen anything like this before.
This end of Austin Street, nothing happens, I mean, it's quiet, it's wonderful, and it was totally out of a movie scene.
What's next is the question that the family is asking themselves now.
We don't have too much family here, so we want to figure out where we can go now for hotel, for a little bit, but that's not forever.
This house becomes the second one to catch fire here on Austin Street. The last one happened in March of 2024 when an abandoned 2-story home caught fire and was completely destroyed just a few houses down from this one. In New Britain, Jamel Johnson, Fox 61.
Well, the 73-year-old man was taken to the hospital after he was hit by a school bus in Waterbury. It happened around 9 this morning at the corner of East Main Street and Harpers Ferry Road. Police say the man suffered serious but non-life-threatening injuries. 5 students were on the bus. They were not hurt. The road was closed for some time as crews investigated.
And tonight, local education leaders are raising concerns over reports the Trump administration is working to dismantle the U.S. Department of Education. According to the Associated Press, an executive order is in preparation by the White House that would direct the education chief to start winding down the agency and urge Congress to pass a measure abolishing it. Fox 61's Angela Bavaro joins us from outside Hartford Public High School with the very latest.
The Connecticut Education Association is calling that executive order by President Trump, as well as another order signed recently that would expand school choice, a direct threat to public schools, students, and communities across the country.
And this is about trying to destroy an institution that is a great equalizer for all of our populations.
These moves, though, coming as no surprise. President Trump campaigned on this issue and is now wasting no time taking those steps towards his goal. He's currently directing his administration to slash spending while pressuring employees to quit. However, his power is limited, as shutting down the U.S. Department of Education would require an act of Congress. The president was asked why he would appoint Linda McMahon as Secretary of Education if he ultimately wants to get rid of the department. Take a listen.
Because I told Linda, I hope you do a great job and put yourself out of a job. And what I want to do is let the states run schools.
But in reality, what we're doing is completely dissolving the accountability on funds and data. And make no mistake, that appears to be sort of a benchmark move of this administration at this point.
We've also got some more background here regarding the federal role in education. Education in the U.S. is primarily a state and local responsibility. According to the U.S. Department of Education website, about 92% of funds for elementary and secondary education come from non-federal sources. The federal government contributes about 8%. That includes funds from other federal agencies like the Department of Health and Human Services Head Start program and the Department of Agriculture's school lunch program.
When you talk about it on the district level, these are millions of dollars that support staff. It supports opportunities for our students. It supports wraparound services for families. So we need to remember that that money, if you remove it from the district level budgets, these are people that lose their jobs and services that are no longer offered to children.
The big question now is how far can President Trump go in this mission without Congress? Some of the department's most significant programs are required by federal legislation. That includes Title I funding for low-income schools, as well as federal student loans. Reporting in Hartford, I'm Angelo Bavar, Fox 61.